Imagine transforming a simple cutting into a vibrant grapevine, yielding an absolute abundance of juicy grapes right from your own backyard. Welcome to this explainer. I'm so thrilled you're here today. We're going to walk through every single step of this really fascinating process, making absolutely sure you walk away at Grapevine Propagation Pro. Let's get right into it.
So here's the big question, right? How exactly do we take what looks like a totally lifeless, dormant twig and somehow coax it into becoming the star of a backyard vineyard? I know, it sounds a bit like magic, but honestly, it's a highly reliable, incredibly rewarding biological process that absolutely anyone can master.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with an intro to propagation, cover the basics of cuttings, walk through a step-by-step guide, tackle some real-world troubleshooting, hit on a few advanced tips, and wrap it all up with some final thoughts.
Starting right off with Section 1, Intro to Grapevine Propagation, where we're going to bust a few vineyard myths.
A lot of folks think starting a vineyard means you have to go out and buy expensive, pre-grown plants from a commercial nursery. Actually, scratch that. You really don't. Propagating from cuttings is so incredibly accessible and, honestly, a lot easier on the wallet. It lets you grow your absolute favorite grape varieties from just a simple winter pruning. You literally just need some basic tools like shears, potting soil, and, well, a little bit of patience.
Okay, Section 2, the basics of vine cuttings. Let's talk biology and why timing is basically everything here.
You basically have two main options for cuttings. First, you've got hardwood cuttings. You take these in the late winter when the vine is completely dormant. It's super simple, needs hardly any equipment, and the success rate for beginners is fantastic. Then you've got softwood cuttings. These are taken from green, actively growing parts in the summer. Now, softwood works, but it requires a ton of environmental control. Think constant misting to keep humidity way up. So for our purposes today, we're going to stick to the tried-and-true hardwood cuttings.
The real secret behind all of this is a naturally occurring plant hormone called auxins. Think of auxins as little chemical messengers. They're produced way up in the growing shoot tips and they constantly travel downward through the stem. Their whole job is to tell the base of the plant, hey, grow some roots. When you snip a stem off the parent vine, those downward traveling auxins essentially hit a roadblock at the bottom cut. There's nowhere else for them to go, so they just pool right there at the base. All that concentrated hormone actually forces the plant's tissues to totally reorganize and push out brand new roots. It's just a brilliant survival mechanism, and we get to completely use it to our advantage.
Moving to Section 3, our step-by-step propagation guide. Let's get into the actual mechanics, starting with what's known as the rule of the cut.
Before we do any cutting, though, we have to pick the right donor vine. The absolute best time to do this is during harvest, so you can actually taste the fruit and make sure it's good. Professionals use a great trick here, color coding. Just mark your healthy, virus-free vines with white paint and any sick or underperforming ones with red paint. That way, when winter rolls around and everything just looks like bare sticks, you'll know exactly which ones are safe to use. When you're out there in late winter taking cuttings, you want the perfect piece of wood. Look for 1-year-old wood about the thickness of a pencil, so 1/4 to maybe 3/4 of an inch thick. You're aiming for a piece about 12 to 16 inches long with 3 to 7 buds on it. But watch out for bowl cans. These are those huge, overly vigorous shoots with wide spaces between the buds. They look tough, but honestly, they make terrible cuttings. Just avoid them entirely.
Okay, here is the golden rule for making your cuts. Step 1, make a straight, completely flat cut at the bottom just beneath a bud or node. Step 2, make an angled, 45-degree cut at the top an inch or 2 above a node. Why do it like this? Because if the top is angled and the bottom is flat, you will never, ever accidentally plant the thing upside down. Step 3, dip that flat bottom into some rooting hormone, which just speeds up those natural auxins we talked about. Finally, Step 4, plant it vertically in your soil, leaving just that top angled cut and the very top bud exposed.
Now, if you want to get a head start indoors, there's a fantastic, incredibly cheap tip for this. Just take a rinsed out cardboard milk carton and cut off the top and bottom. You've just made a DIY plant band. It gives your cutting a nice, deep, well-draining container to grow roots in. And the best part? Come spring, you can just slide the whole thing straight into the ground. Easy peasy.
Right, Section 4, real-world advice and troubleshooting. Because, let's face it, things don't always go perfectly on the first try. If a cutting fails, it's almost always for one specific reason. The buds open up and push out leaves before the roots have actually formed. Leaves are incredibly thirsty.
if there are no roots down below to pull up water, those new leaves will just drain all the stored energy right out of the stem, and the whole cutting just dries up and dies. It's a real tightrope walk balancing that out. When you're checking to see if your plant is ready for the garden, remember this awesome visual trick. You're looking for the rice stage. You want short, sturdy, little white roots that look exactly like grains of rice. If you leave them too long and they turn into long, tangled noodles, the spaghetti stage, they're super fragile and will likely just snap off when you try to plant them. Nobody wants that.
Let's throw in a bit of fun folk wisdom here, too. A grower named Rick Shorty found out by pure accident that if you're stuck with green summer cuttings, you can actually just pop them into a simple glass of water on your windowsill. The water acts like life support, keeping the leaves hydrated just long enough for the natural auxins to slowly, eventually push out roots. Rooting hormone powders, they literally just fast-track this exact same natural process.
All right, Section 5, Advanced Tips and Best Practices. If you're looking to scale up or you're dealing with really stubborn varieties, listen up.
Muscadine grapes are notoriously stubborn when it comes to rooting from hardwood cuttings. But researchers looking at the data found a real game changer. By optimizing the environment, specifically taking cuttings in November, planting them fresh, and using bottom heat in a warmer place like Georgia, they bumped success rates up to over 40%. Compare that to just under 19% when using cold storage in Arkansas. So yeah, tweaking the environment is a massive deal.
How do you actually pull off that optimization at home? Temperature manipulation. Remember how we said early leaves spell doom for a cutting? Well, advanced growers outsmart the plant. They keep the ambient air temperature cool, around 50 to 57 degrees, to keep the top buds totally asleep. At the exact same time, they put the base of the pots on a heating mat cranked to about 85 degrees. You're literally tricking the cutting, freezing the top so it doesn't leaf out, while baking the bottom so roots explode out. It is absolute genius.
Okay, bring it all home with Section 6, Conclusion and Final Thoughts. Let's wrap this up.
To quickly recap, if you're a beginner, definitely stick to dormant hardwood cuttings in late winter. They are way more forgiving. Don't forget the golden rule: flat cut on the bottom, angled cut on the top. Manage that moisture to keep the leaves from outrunning the roots. And hey, remember, every gardening environment is completely unique, and results can vary wildly. While we've shared some really proven practices today, it's incredibly important to adapt them based on your specific conditions and always seek out professional advice when needed.
I want to leave you with this one final wild thought. If a perfectly ordinary, seemingly lifeless dormant twig holds the entire biological blueprint to build a massive, thriving backyard vineyard, what other horticultural miracles are just waiting out there for your pruning shears? Nature is just unbelievably resilient, and propagation gives you a front-row ticket to that magic. So go grab those shears, make some cuts, and start growing. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.